Alright guys, I'm going to be reviewing Final Fantasy XI in 2023. Is this game still worth spending your hard-earned money, and more importantly your time on? Let's go ahead and get into it. Final Fantasy XI is a open-world MMORPG that has been online for nearly 21 years, which is insane because the game is still getting updates to this day. You start off as a nobody adventurer in Vana'diel that has to work from absolutely nothing to become a legendary hero that you were always meant to be. But let's go ahead and talk about the things I really like about this game. The first thing I really like about this game is there's a ridiculous amount of content. There are 20 years of things to do, not even including the 11 DLCs. And if that wasn't enough, once you finally reach level 99, which is max level, you can unlock master levels that allow you to level another 50 times. And that's just the leveling part of the game. That doesn't even include the dungeons to complete, battles in the past to go fight, because yes, time travel is a thing, artifact weapons and artifact armor for you to collect, there's crafting and gathering jobs for you to take up, and that is just some of the stuff. I'm probably forgetting some more stuff to do, but that's just a sample of the things to do. But let's move on to the storytelling of the game. Because there's so much content, they could build up large, big stories and develop characters, so the story's really good in the game. The next thing I like about this game is there's zero hand-holding. There's not a hour-long tutorial, they don't do any of that. The tutorial's like 5 minutes long where they tell you there's monsters outside the city gates, and for you to go figure it out yourself. As much as I like the game not holding your hand that much, it definitely makes the game a lot harder than it needs to be at times, and can be really annoying. So sometimes you're just gonna have to look up the wiki, because that's how it is. Another thing I like about this game, that it is completely open world. It is fun to explore these massive zones. There's a lot to find in them too, from abandoned mines to ruined ancient cities that have been taken over by monsters. Speaking of monsters, you could find notorious monsters, aka NMs, roaming these big open areas. And these super roided up monsters are not to be trifled with. They could be 5 or 10 levels ahead of the monsters in the area that you're in, and on top of that, most of them have a signature move like surprise you finna die because you didn't know I was an NM. So why would you even want to fight these monsters? Well, they drop some super juicy loot, like rare weapons and armor to things like keys or even fishing poles and bait. These NMs may be risky to fight, but the rewards are definitely there. Now let's go ahead and talk about my favorite thing about this game, which is support jobs, aka sub job. A sub job is a secondary job that you can equip on your main job, allowing you to gain its abilities, traits, and stats, but your sub job will always be half your main job's levels. This allows you to mix and match your favorite jobs, giving you the freedom to customize your favorite job any way you want it to be. So let me give you some examples. You want your warrior to dual wield? Not a problem. Sub ninja. Is your blue mage taking too long to cast spells? Sub red mage for the fast cast trait. Oh, you're a beastmaster and you want to heal your pets? Not a problem. Sub white mage and you can heal all your pets. And that's just some of all the cool combinations you can make. There's 22 different jobs for you to play and max out and do whatever you want with, but let's go ahead and move on to the things I dislike about this game. The first major turnoff for most people for this game is that you have to pay to play. That means you have to pay a subscription monthly to stay online on the server. This may come as a shock if you're not into MMOs like World of Warcraft or Final Fantasy XIV, because they charge you a service fee to play the game. For Final Fantasy XI, it is $11.95. Now, they do charge you $1 per character. Now, if you only have one character, that is $1. So it is $12.95 to play the game, or basically $13. Moving on to another thing I dislike about this game, that it is outdated. The graphics look really rough. They're PlayStation 2, Xbox 360 graphics, because that's what the game was made to play on. On top of that, the UI is clunky, and it could barely push 10 frames per second. But with a little help from third-party softwares, you could kick it up to modern standards like 144 frames per second and 4K resolutions. I have mine at 30 frames per second right now. I could probably get it turned up to 144, but that's just too much work for me right now, and I'll do that later. Speaking of third-party software, if you have the patience, you could fix a lot of the game's problems. You could add a mini-map, fix the graphics like I mentioned earlier, and fix the clunky UI and make it more like Final Fantasy XIV's UI if you really wanted to. It really depends on how much you want to put in effort-wise. Another thing I dislike about this game is there's barely any character creation. You could pick a character's race, gender, hair color, and height, and that's about it. There's not a lot to customize. It's kind of rough. But let's go ahead and move on to the next thing I dislike about this game. The final thing I dislike about this game, it does not respect your time whatsoever. It was created to be difficult and time consuming. For example, airships and boat rides take an absolute eternity. It takes you 5 minutes to board the ship. You get on the ship and wait for everyone to get on board for another 5 minutes. It takes 10, 15, maybe even 20 minutes to get where you're going, depending on how far away it is. And it could take 30 or 35 minutes to get where you're actually going that you need to be. That is just one of the many example of things put into the game to be difficult. I think that's the final thing I'm going to complain about. Let's move on to other questions that you may have about the game. Can you solo in Final Fantasy XI? Yes, you could solo level from level 1 to 99 with zero problems whatsoever. Now, the end game content, it's kind of iffy. You could do it if you have the right gear set and the right class, but it might be a little tough. You might have to get some potions and some really good consumables, but you could solo almost everything in Final Fantasy XI, if not everything. Now, would teammates make the game a lot easier? Absolutely. The game's an MMO. But let's move on to the next question. Is Final Fantasy XI dead? I think this is the most important question of the video, and the answer is absolutely not. There are hardcore community keeping this game alive for the last 20 years, and it's actually been on an incline because there's a lot of streamers and YouTubers coming to this game and creating private servers and bringing popularity back to the game. But let's go ahead and wrap up the video. In conclusion, should you buy this game? I think so. I really like this game. If you like Final Fantasy or MMOs in general, and games that don't hold your hand, this game's a lot of fun. If I had to rate it, it would be a 9 out of 10 with add-ons that, you know, make the game a lot better and change the UI a bit. The game's a lot of fun. They even give you a notice to remind you of your family because this game is really addictive. And it may or may not be the reason I haven't been uploading videos lately. But if you guys like this type of content, please like, comment, and subscribe. And I hope you guys had a good holiday. See you later.